Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting Marvel comic book from 1988, Marvel Fanfare number 40. Marvel Fanfare was a Marvel comic that would publish all these inventory stories, things that didn't quite fit into the normal continuity of the monthly comics. Sometimes they were sitting there for years in a drawer somewhere. A lot of good stuff, though. I mean, they'd have like Michael Golden X-Men comics and Barry Windsor Smith doing The Thing, writing, drawing, and coloring. All these really great artists, but they just kind of shunted into this title. And so every issue was different. This is a really kind of bizarre issue considering Marvel published it. It's David Mazzucchelli, great comic book artist. Started off in mainstream comics, drawing Daredevil, went on to do Batman Year One, one of the probably most reprinted graphic novels of all time, up there with Dark Knight Returns. Just amazing, great superhero artist. And then a few years after this, a year or two, he reemerged as like an art cartoonist. He published his magazine called Rubber Blanket with a few other contributors, and all of a sudden kind of reinvented himself as like a Fantagraphics type artist, and he was amazing. Did just the stuff in Rubber Blanket, his graphic novel Asterius Polyp, brilliant cartoonist, great writer, great artist. But this is like the first inkling that, he's not a superhero artist, really. Because up until this point, he was just drawing, good superhero comics, Batman, Daredevil. And then this comes out. I think the art was probably too weird for like a normal X-Men title. They were like, I don't know about this. So the cover by Mazzucchelli, I believe it's also colored by the colorist of his story, David Hornung. And David Hornung, later on, was also a Rubber Blanket contributor. He was also a cartoonist with, bigger fish to fry than superheroes. He's now like a pretty successful painter. Kind of does these abstract paintings and collages. But let's just show the editorial. Every issue of Marvel Fanfare, the editor, Al Milgrom, would do these little intros in comic strip form. Really terrible artist. It was pretty bad. But he would just, tell you what's going to be in the issue, and stuff like that. So here we go. Look at this. Oh, I should mention, this is written by Ann Nocenti, longtime Marvel Comics writer. Now, went on to write for Vertigo. She's still all over the place. I'm not sure what she's writing now, but she's still writing. And Ann Nocenti was one of those writers who emerged in the 80s who was a little more adult. Her superhero comics were almost like pre-Vertigo, where they would talk about, more adult issues than your average issue of Spider-Man or New Warriors or something. Not a big fan of hers usually. Every now and then I liked her stuff because I read almost all of her Daredevils back in the 80s. I guess after following Frank Miller, it would be a letdown for any writer to take over. But she's definitely a cut above your average, Marvel hack writer. So here we go. We see some quotes from the Bible, and we see the angel, the X-Men character, falling from the sky. I should mention this is lettered by John Workman, so they got a nice support crew on this comic. And we see this old lady and her grandson, and she's reading to him from the Bible. She's reading to him about the giant battle in heaven that happened when Lucifer rebelled, and how a lot of the angels were cast out of heaven. And this kid's not the best kid. The whole time he's just thinking, oh God, my grandmother's repulsive. Like he's talking about her wrinkles, and he even tries to steal her wallet or her purse. Well, actually he succeeds. And she almost catches him, but he just says, oh, I was just reaching out to touch your hand, Grandma. And the grandma's just a kind of dotty, sweet old lady. She's very old. She's in pain. Her brain's starting to be a little soft. So the kid runs off. Her grandson runs off. Her toaster's acting up. She tries to reach an apple from her tree. She's like, oh, an apple sounds delicious right now. But she's got this neighbor who's kind of like a self-appointed guardian. And she's like, get down from there. You'll hurt yourself. You'll have a heart attack. Come on. And she's almost like a kid. She's just like, but I just wanted... So she goes inside to watch TV, thinking about her needlepoint design that's been missing something for years. She has been working on one needlepoint design for like 3 years. Everything on the news is just terrifying to her. And just horrible stuff, so she turns it off. I'm sorry, I haven't even mentioned, though. Let's go back. And if you've noticed, look at this art. For a Marvel comic, this is like almost the style that David Mazzucchelli would be drawing in 2 to 3 years on Rubber Blanket and other things. This is just so nice and expressive art. This is really good stuff, especially considering it's an X-Men story. And also the colors. Look at these beautiful colors by David Ornan. This deep purples here, just really nice stuff. And even if it's not your cup of tea, it's at least bold and interesting, So she's basically realizing that, like, oh man, I hate being old. She realizes that the grandson stole her purse, and she's like, he stole from stupid fat old grandma. So she's feeling all self-pitying. And she goes in her garage, sits behind the wheel of the car she hasn't driven in years because she's not allowed to drive anymore. She's old. And she says, I wish I could just leave. And, she can still remember, though, being young and beautiful and meeting her husband and how much in love they were. And, now everything's so different. She's old and fat and wrinkly and in pain. So she says, I haven't driven in years, but it would be so easy. Just turn the key and go. Obviously, she's talking on 2 levels here. She's talking about going, the big go for eternity. So hard I'll never get out of this garage. But then she sees in the rearview mirror, she sees a falling angel. And she's like, oh God, I'm just senile. But then she hears the crash. She realizes that, wait, this isn't just a delusion. And she runs outside and she sees the angel. And he's fallen from the sky. A lot of his feathers have fallen off. And she's just like, oh my God, a real angel. And the angel, he's half dead. He's like, my feathers must have them all. Which I don't know anything about this part of the X-Men mythos that supposedly the angel can't lose his feathers. I don't know if that means he'll lose his powers or something. I don't understand that really. So she runs around chasing all of the feathers. I like the coloring on that little silhouette panel there. That's nice. It's just really nice cartooning. And it's actually probably one of my favorite Ann Nocenti stories. It's pretty nice. So she makes this like homemade glue, and she starts putting his feathers back on. But she's like, saves one. She's like, oh, he won't miss one, will he? And she puts it in her pocket. She just can't resist. I mean, an angel's feather. Even though she's a good Christian woman, she just can't resist. So she makes him all this food and help him recuperate. And now she's got the feather in her pocket. All of a sudden, after 3 years, she realizes that the needlepoint design needed this missing piece. And she's very pleased with it. It's almost like the feather has given her almost like, not a new lease on life. It's not like it makes her young or anything, but it's stirred her imagination, and her fallow brain is maybe a little more fertile now. So she realizes that I shouldn't steal the feather. That's wrong. She glues the last feather into the angel's back. So he's pretty well. I guess that's all he needed to heal. I guess his mutant powers have made him feel better. He takes an apple, though, because she says you must eat something. And he kisses her, and she's like almost swooning. She's like, oh, kissed by an angel. What a blessing. And, you know, I'm sorry, I missed an important point. Before, as he kisses her, he slips a feather in her pocket. He's basically like, I guess she deserves it. So I guess maybe the angel can miss a feather or two. So the toaster that was being all annoying, she throws in the garbage, puts on her driving gloves, and gets in her car. And for the first time in years, she says, fuck it, I'm going for a drive. So I don't know if it was just meeting this angel has stirred her, you know, made her feel younger, or actually the angel's feather has some kind of power. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Kind of a sweet story. And I like how on the radio it's playing Sing Hallelujah, Come On Get Happy. That old swing song. So now we have a second story here. And God, what an issue. So this is a storm story drawn by Craig Hamilton. I don't know if you're familiar with Craig Hamilton. He was an amazing cartoonist. I assume he was very slow, though. He didn't do much. He came to prominence doing this Aquaman miniseries for DC. And obviously nobody gives a shit about Aquaman. They keep trying to restart it. Nobody cares. But his art was so good, it kind of became this sensation. Every now he did some stuff for X-Men titles, I think a little. He did later on, he did stuff for like Fables and Vertigo. But just so, he's probably done, you know, less pages in his career than Steranko or Frank Frazetta. Not many, but it's always gorgeous. Just very illustrative. I see a lot of P. Craig Russell in it. And just the beautiful way he draws smoke and foliage, and just very Art Nouveau inspired sometimes. Not in the main art, just that sometimes he throws in design work. So this is a storm story where, oh, sorry, I just got to pause and look at that. Chris Claremont writer, so whatever. Sorry, it's going to be a little annoying. Craig Hamilton penciler, Rick Bryant inker. Rick Bryant is an inker who always seemed to ink whenever they had like a really illustrative artist like Craig Hamilton. He was always inking guys like Mike Kaluta, or not that he did, but guys like that. I guess he could, you know, no matter how many lines a penciler laid down, he could ink it well. And also I want to mention the colorist is Petra Scotese. She was one of the first colorists in the 70s where it was almost like you could tell, like, oh, this is a Petra Scotese colored comic. It was, she was a cut above. Just a really good colorist back when it was just shitty newsprint. And she's still coloring, luckily, in this day when we have good coloring and nice paper. And this is some really beautiful stuff. Look at that. So this green is a little, I don't know, an odd choice, but who knows? Maybe there's a neon sign under it that's green, I don't know. So this is a typical, like, Chris Claremont written X-Men tale. Lots of captions of what people are thinking. Everyone's giving out exposition as much as they can. It's like exposition diarrhea. But Storm's on her way to this weird club because Mystique wants to meet her. Mystique is a long-term X-Men villain. Something that's a little cheesy, you know, here and there. Like, that guy's drawing kind of weird. And look at it looks like she's cross-eyed here, Mystique. It looks like a mistake. And I guess in this mythos of the X-Men at the time, they have a truce, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants of the X-Men. Storm is leading the X-Men. Mystique is the leader of the Brotherhood. And they're just basically talking about how an X-Men who used to be very close with Mystique is now on the run because she is blamed for killing a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And even though they're villains, she's like, here's information to help you find Rogue, because I know you can help her better than I can, because I'm on the run myself from the authorities. Look at this guy. Hello, Sailor. I know it sounds weird, but I notice a lot of gay cartoonists You can almost tell they're gay before you know they're gay by the way they lovingly draw men's bodies. So I don't know, just a theory. Craig Hamilton might be gay because that is just a gorgeous looking guy. Obviously spent a lot of time thinking about how hot guys look. It almost looks like Paul Galassi. Yeah, a lot of these faces do. That's very Paul Galassi. Oh my God, these two. I never even noticed that before. So if you're confused, Mystique's a shapeshifter, so she's looking like Storm. That's why you're like, why is this woman talking to herself? Literally. So Mystique takes off. They make a deal. Storm is gonna look for Rogue. And that's a pretty nice panel there. Just a really good superhero artist. I mean, I wish he drew more. If he could have drawn more, he would have been a superstar. He would have been, Arthur Adams big, or Todd McFarlane. So then Mystique goes to meet Destiny, I believe her name is. She's also an evil mutant. And they're lovers, but it was back in the late 80s. You couldn't really talk about it. But Chris Claremont's pretty blatant here that their affection is very tender. And Mystique even turns into a dude so they can dance. Because even back then in this weird punk club, two women dancing might have been raised some eyebrows. And Mystique is reveling. She feels like she won this day. So just an interesting little slice of life or character piece about these weird X-Men characters. Probably better than your average issue of X-Men, the writing. It's just nice to see, like, oh, wow, people have loves and whatever, relationships. Here we get two nice pinups by Craig Hamilton. Beautiful Doctor Strange and Clea one. This is very Kaluta here. See, that's what I mean, like P. Greg Russell, Kaluta, just adding these beautiful little touches of this smoke from the brazier, but it's turning into a little demon. That's just like really just, I don't know, the sinuous line. It's very flowing, very interesting. This one's kind of cheesy to me. This almost looks like I don't know, more image-like. That's a beautiful Zabu, though. This is Cesar and Shauna the She-Devil. And then, as if this wasn't a good enough issue, they throw in two more pinups. Kent Williams doing the Submariner, and George Pratt doing Elektra. We just talked about these guys in the last epic. Two of the 80s painters guys. Like, all of a sudden, when the paper got good, these guys who could fully paint came into comics. Like these guys and John J. Muff. And they definitely upped the ante of comic art. This is a lot different than, when I was growing up reading Marvel 2-in-1 or something by Ron Wilson. So it's kind of interesting. And then we get another little Craig Hamilton back cover of Storm. Just really nice art. It's kind of weird too. I also see like the way he inks with all those lines. It almost reminds me of John Totalbin of Swamp Thing fame. But whatever. It's just really nice illustrative superhero art. And once again, this green mist following her makes a beautiful design motif like Art Nouveau. So I don't even know if this is expensive, this issue. I don't know if anyone cares about it. It's a damn good comic. It's probably like better than any Marvel comic that decade. Or definitely after that decade. So really good stuff. Marvel Fanfare number 40. I remember seeing this in quarter bins and later on dollar bins forever. And just nobody gave a shit. And it's a really good comic. So if you can find this, I hope you can. Snatch it up. It's definitely worthy to be in anyone's comic book collection. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you return to see the next video here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.